it's Andy Timmons here, just hanging out in my studio, and my good friends at D'Addario have asked if I would give a quick tour through my rig, just a quick kind of signal path, how I run my tones, right? And my love of D'Addario strings kind of happened in the early 90s. I was doing the second Danger record, and I was having trouble tuning and tone. I wasn't happy with it, and I had a friend, Don Dawson, that was working with D'Addario at the time, still may be, my buddy Don, sent me a pack, and it worked out great. And I tend to be the kind of player that once I lock into something that I really love, it's gonna be a constant, you know, at least in this case. So these strings have been with me since 1990, long time. I get great tone, obviously, durability. They last a long time. I change strings pretty frequently because I'll tend to break eventually, but I don't think it's the string problem. It's just my heavy right hand. So that pick and these strings again have been a really consistent part of my tone. But let's run through the pedal board because I know you guys like to learn about the pedals, and that's the one thing that's kind of always changing. I will get certain components that will be rock solid and be consistent, but then other bits are always changing out. I initially run my guitar signal right into a CAE wah pedal, the Bradshaw, I think Dunlop makes it. And then from there, I'm feeding into kind of the master of the whole system here. This is a Gig Rig G2. We'll cut in the photos of, since we don't have the two camera setup here, my apologies for the low fineness. But it's a G2 gig rig made by my great friend Daniel Steinhardt. You probably know from that pedal show, or just from making this awesome piece of switching gear. And essentially, it's controlling the entire pedal board. It brings pedals in and out of all the different loops that are set up, and then feeds it to my amplifiers. So essentially today, the tones are going to be my main Lone Star, but just set clean. And I'll demonstrate what the amp sounds like on its own, and then as I bring pedals in, we'll talk about what that is. But I've got the Lone Stars accepting all the pedals on the front end, except for the two time-based effects pedals that I have, a Strymon Timeline and a Strymon Big Sky that are delay and reverb in that order. So delay and then feeding the reverb. And that's running into the effects loop. But that's time splitting at stereo. From the first amp, the effects send is hitting the timeline. And then stereo timeline feeds stereo Big Sky. One side goes back to the main, this guy, and then I'm slaving into another Lone Star head, which is behind me there. So it's two Lone Stars being fed, the main preamp of the main, but splitting stereo with the time-based effects. And in the other room, I've got two Mesa Boogie 2x12 rectifier cabinets, which has also been, I think since about 2005 when I started using the Lone Star, when that first was on the scene. Heard the amp, I thought that's for me, and like I said, been using it ever since. However many years that is now. Math people, add that up for me. So there's that, and it's just a SM57 on each cabinet, feeding a couple of old Neve 1272s, and then into the digital audio workshop. So let's start with my initial tones. Tend to be it's all kind of gain. It's all gain related, right? So the first sound I have here is it's my Carl Martin dual delay compressor limiter, and it's a 2-channel compressor basically. It's A or B, and the main side of it I use is barely compressing. It's really boosting quite a bit. So here's just the amp on its own, okay. So here, just a nice warm front end platform. I've got EL34s in the amp instead of the 6L6s, which it comes with, but it's switchable, very handy. So let me add just now the Carl Martin compressor. So now hopefully you're hearing that with a significant boost that I'm hearing it here. I don't know if there's any compression along the way, and once you get this video. So that's just the Carl Martin, and what's a really beautiful sound. It's just got it's hitting the front end of the amp pretty hard, so it's giving me a little sponge, a little, kind of blossom to the note. So that's a tone that I will use fairly often. Then I'll also hit the front end of that. So before the Carl Martin, this is an exotic RC boost. And I use that quite a bit for not so much the gain, but just adding a little bit of top and maybe taking off a little bottom end. Kind of sending into a bit of distortion. That tends to work really well for some of the like really pretty chordal. Those kind of ballads I like to play. Right? So next to that, I have set up a blues driver. Now this is, let's see how I've got the setting. Yeah, this is just the blues driver. Now instead of the RC hitting the compressor, this is just blues driver into the front of the amp. Kind of going for the same tone, it's just slightly different color, and I'll choose one or two depending on how it sounds that day. Now if you hear that tone with the guitar wide open, it's pretty crunchy, but when I back down the volume of the guitar on the neck pickup, that's the special tone that I'm going for. It's kind of like, you know, kind of a JMP master volume amp where it's got a bit of gain on it, but you back the volume down, it cleans it up to give it a little bit more glassy sound. Okay, let's see what I have next up. There's a pedal that Exotic put out quite a while ago. It was my signature version of their BB preamp. And I think I had one of the very first BB preamps when they came out. They met me at the guitar, at GIT. I was doing a gig with the Andy Timmons band, right when Resolution was about to come out, I think. Right around that time, 2006. And they had this pedal. They brought it by and asked if I would play it, and just got on great with it. And so this is the BB, which is a bit more gain and a bit more compressed than the RC or the AC. So I liked it for kind of the neck pickup. And that's the gain pedal. Here's the BB on its own, hitting the front end of the amp. Which sounds great, but if I put that in front of, which is a little counterintuitive, the old days I might have thought of putting the compressor first and then a gain pedal, but this was kind of a happy accident. Just the day that they came, I had the compressor back on the amp, and so this was feeding that, and it just sounded good to me. So I did that for that bluesy kind of neck pickup, breakup kind of tone. And then if I want to go for full-on lead, I've got the JHS signature pedal that they make for me called the AT. It's the at sign, which is clever, right? AT. So this is that. Here's the amp again. Hold on. Here's just the amp on its own, so to give you an idea what it does. So after hearing all those pedals, it's clear that I like hitting the front end of the amp pretty hard with whatever pedals I'm using, right? So there's the amp. If I turn the JHS on. Really nice. It's a good amount of gain without being too buzzy. I'm always trying to find the right amount of gain to where it's singing, it's fat, but not too buzzy. Okay, so that's the main palette. And as always, the delay is not so much, as somebody kind of pointed out to me, not so much my effect, but it's really a part of my tone. And over the years, I've used a variety of things to get the delay sound that I want. For a long time, I toured with a couple of deluxe Memory Man echoes by Electro Harmonics, which sound great and are very special because of their preamps. In the studio, I'll use old EP3 tape echoes, which I love the sound of. That preamp has got a thing that it does to the tone that I love a lot. But the timeline's done a great job for me of getting that dual delay setting. So I've got 2 against 3, or whatever that is. You know, it's like dotted eighth quarter note. And the key to that setting, and it took a long time of being how I programmed this with the old Memory Man, which is just getting the right amount of dissipation in the delays. You want to dirty them up a little bit so they're not too literal, not too digital. And then the right amount of modulation on the repeats itself. So you've got I've got an expression pedal hooked up too. I think that's a Dunlop expression pedal, which can control any parameter on the timeline, but I choose to only use it for just the effect level. That's all I really need to mess with. This thing does a bazillion things, and I've got 2 settings I use. But I know there's cool sounds waiting for me. So what this the idea of this is that it's emulating what the Memory Man does, but that's pretty much emulating what the tape echo does. When there's a bit of wow and flutter in that tape, it's not going to repeat identically what's being fed into it. It's going to be a little out of tune, a little warbly, and a little distorted, right? So it just gives us, like the old Echoplex logo, it's got the ripple, you know, around that. It's just like throwing that pebble in the pond. So it's not coarse in the Andy Summers, you know, cool chorusing idea. That the guitar tone remains what it is, in tune. It's everything else around it goes out of tune. Just ever so slightly. So then it gets that kind of halo around the note. So that's pretty much always on. I'll use a bit of reverb every now and then. I'll sometimes get a long reverb. But I usually don't need too much of it because I've always used the delays as kind of a reverb. You know, it's kind of in the back and out of the way, kind of creating just the atmosphere, the ambience that I want to play in. A couple of cool, you know, pedals that I won't use a lot, but are really great sounding pedals. The G&I Octafuzz has been on my board forever. I love these guys. Great company down in Brazil. A little hard to get here because they don't have distribution yet, but it is easily my favorite Octavia fuzz. It's like imitating the you know, Purple Haze. But I use it on Helipad on Resolution, and there's a tune called Winterland on my Theme from a Perfect World record. Where so love that tone. It's one of those things you can't use all night long, but when you go to it, it's got a great vibe to it. I've got a Pog on the board, which I like for. So that takes care of my low octave on a low octave. It does an upper octave, but I prefer that Octavia sound. But for kind of a. Okay. And then my friends down in Greece, the Jam Pedal Company, have a retro vibe. It's a great univibe. Nice and chewy, like you like it. And what else is on here? Oh, I've got a very cool chorus pedal that my friends, the Laney folks, Simon Fraser. It's called Spiral Array, and the pedal company is called Black Country Customs. And this has got a great CE1, like the old Roland does a great job of that kind of sound. So I can get a. And I think that about covers it. There's a muffaletta fuzz on there that I use sometimes. It's got a great fuzz. I like to hit that into a Marshall sometimes. That sounds pretty awesome. That's essentially it. MXR 6-band EQ that I might carve out some low end on some sounds if it gets a bit woolly. Seasoned to taste. So I hope that clears up a little bit, but this will be different next week. So things are always coming and going, but those are the main tools I like to use, and I hope you're enjoying your tone quest. Good luck with your playing, and of course, nothing replaces the tone that comes with time, right? So, but it's kind of handy to have some cool sounding stuff to inspire you. Well, good luck with that. Thank you, Diodario, for making my awesome strings, EXL 110s, again since 1990. I think I like them. Thanks, guys.